This is the most exciting time in history as Stephen Colbert has named his successor for the 12:30 spot at CBS. We'll look at it now.
Do every kind of joke you can imagine, and you don't see people up here.
Now, before we get started, it's very important to understand the lineage and ancestry of CBS late night programming as it relates to NBC, and we'll do a little bit of that now. So basically what happened is Johnny Carson, the king, he was the third host of The Tonight Show after Steve Allen and Jack Paar. He took over. He was named as the king. He had the programming slot 12:30 after him. It was in his contract. And he taps Tom Snyder, a hard-boiled newsman, to do like serious interviews in the middle of the night, right? Now, he had some problems with the company, and he was also kind of wary about the direction that NBC was going as far as the executive management, right? So all of those waves made David Letterman, who was tapped by Johnny Carson's favorite. He had a daytime show, which failed under the leadership of Meghan Markle, his girlfriend at the time, came over to the 12:30 spot, took Tom Snyder's spot. 1993, he was passed over for The Tonight Show. Jay Leno got it, so as a man, he went over to CBS to compete against him at 11:30.
Paul, you can come along with this deal.
Oh shit, Paul.
He waited a year, waited till he got his success up, got all this syndication, got all this, and then he taps Tom Snyder to come back in and do the 12:30 spot, the Tomorrow Show, which was the same model, just hard-boiled interviews in the middle of the night, no frizz, no prizes, no studio audiences. He did it hardcore style, right? Okay, so Tom Snyder cannot compete against Conan O'Brien. He steps down. Craig Kilborn comes in, who was the first host of The Daily Show, who was taken over by Jon Stewart. Not a big deal. We'll talk about the lineage of The Daily Show. It becomes relevant later on in this conversation. So after him, they get another Brit to come in. They get a Brit to come in, Craig Ferguson, and then after Craig Ferguson's wonderful lineage, his wonderful run, I suggest you go back and look at all the Mila Kunis stuff. It's very beautiful stuff. James Corden comes in. He does the whole carpool karaoke. He's critically panned most of the time. Not a big deal. He's gone now. But the question was, what's going to happen at 12:30 after James Corden leaves, right? Now, Stephen Colbert has famously never invited David Letterman on the show. And they talked about it a little bit on the Strike Force 5 podcast during the writer's strike, where all the late night hosts get together. It was one of the later episodes. They invite David Letterman on, and they kind of clear up the whole controversy of that here.
Enough that you invited yourself on the podcast, but I did invite you to
I
the
feel
Q&A.
awful now knowing that what's his name has invited himself in, and Jon Stewart been a mainstay. But you were all on. We've all been on shows together, right? Yeah.
Yes, we've all been on your show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You've been on my show.
Yeah.
And you're the only. And I've not been on John's show.
No, we don't have guests. I've had Edward Snowden, the
Fat
Dalai
chance.
Lama, and that's it. I think.
Ed Snowden.
Dave, I'd love to have you on the Late Show. Would going back to the Ed Sullivan be a fun thing for you, or just a weird thing?
Well, now it would be okay. I will. Does anybody really want to hear this or not?
Yeah,
100%.
No thanks.
Whatever this is.
From there, what's going to happen? Because if you think about it, there's people in the developmental leagues right now. Charlamagne the God's over there at Comedy Central doing his little show. It gets canceled. Amber Ruffin has a sporadic show on Peacock. She's also one of the writers over there at Seth Meyers' late night show. So there's ordinations going on everywhere, right? So Amber Ruffin, who's my big contender in this whole thing, right? It has a crazy successful show. It seems developmental. It's mostly just kind of sketchy stuff at first. Then they start to trickle in guests and like kind of more traditional segments. It's almost like they're training her for a spot that she will inevitably take over. Now here's the thing, Jimmy Fallon, who we all think is going to quit soon because everybody's kind of annoyed of Jimmy Fallon and his laugh and everything, does an interview for Sunday Morning on NBC where his wife basically proclaims the fact that he's not allowed to have another job and will never have another job.
How long would you like to see him in this job?
To me, this is a lifelong job because of this. I think
So we have that whole situation going over there at NBC. So what's going to happen? Seth Meyers is developing Amber Ruffin. Seth Meyers is already at 12:30, so he can't move, which means she can't move. Lauren Michaels has his finger on the neck of the whole NBC network. So you still got Colin Jost, you got Michael Che to contend with. Like, what are they going to do? So Amber Ruffin was in the development league. Charlamagne the Guy was in the development league. He's now doing the guest host spot over there on Comedy Central, which he endorsed Amber Ruffin to do.
And she's a comedian and the host of the Amber Ruffin Show on Peacock, and maybe the new host of the Daily Show, Amber Ruffin. Both fighters are more than qualified to wear the crown. But I don't think Comedy Central passes up the chance to get a host who's black, funny, and a woman. Yeah. Amber Ruffin wins, okay?
There's drama there. Nobody's talking about that. So he's first endorsed by Charlamagne the Guy. Then she's secondly endorsed by David Letterman at the 40th year anniversary of the Late Night Show, directly by him.
And if I had that Amber and Jenny thing, I'd still be on the air. Yeah.
And then thirdly by John Oliver, who's killing everybody in the ratings of all the late night stuff, even though he does a 1 day a week show over there at HBO, pretty much ordains Amber Ruffin as the wild card in this whole thing. There's two wild cards. James Corden, who was the host before this new current host, had a guest by the name of Chris Pratt on. He's a big movie star, but he said one thing he would always like to do was be a host of a late night show.
Now, your father-in-law, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said that he thinks you would make an excellent talk show host. And I agree with him, actually. Is that something you'd ever consider?
You know what? I think so. Yes, I would.
That's scary. Chris Pratt has some history with NBC by way of Parks and Recreation, so he's already kind of in the camp. He's handsome, but he comes from the actor's point of view. Maybe that was kind of wavy. Maybe that was kind of scary, and maybe he had a flight risk taking on a job that potentially could last 30 years. So maybe he's out the running for the whole thing. Now, so John Mulaney, though. Think about John Mulaney. He's a new world bastion of old world comedy. And what I mean by that is he's telling jokes. He's a very polished comedian in an old world style. We all love him. He had a drug addiction. He went to rehab. He had his whole redemption arc. He's polished. He's ready for the spot. So Stephen Colbert has him on and presents him with a Catholic medal, which means a lot to Stephen Colbert, which means it should mean a lot to us. And presumably, I thought that John Mulaney might have been the new idea for 12:30. Now, obviously, when you talk about pedigrees, Stephen Colbert comes from The Daily Show. You know, Craig Kilborn begets Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart begets Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah's gone. Who's going to be the next guy up? Now, one of the correspondents with Stephen Colbert, along with John Oliver, were also Samantha Bee. Now, what's going to happen to Samantha Bee? She would be a perfect person at 12:30 to compete against the Amber Ruffin at 12:30 on NBC. That's where I thought it was going. But as the internet tells us, he chooses a relative outsider to the whole mainstream syndicated network TV game and brings her in. We'll look at it now.
Folks, part of my job, as you probably know, is staying on top of current events. But I saw something this afternoon that really surprised me. According to a CBS press release, where I get most of my news, apparently the network has announced the new late night series, which will take over the 12:30 time slot right after my show. There is currently no host for after midnight, and that is a tough gig to fill. I mean, we're still trying to find a good host for the Late Show.
Gentlemen, please welcome the newest late night host, Taylor Tomlinson.
It's very exciting stuff. My name is Rick Ruby. If you like this content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. At Midnight's Live on Instagram, at Midnight's Live on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell notification so you can know when all my new episodes coming up, because we're going to be turning a lot of episodes out with this new exciting developments coming out on late night TV. It's been Rick Ruby. We'll see you next time. Peace.